Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Thank you. Now enjoy the show. Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of RAERAEs Review, where I'm going to let you know what happened on the Equalizer. That's Equalizer on CBS for Queen Latifah. Yes, yes, yes. This is season 5, episode 14, and we will be coming back later on. They had a week break, right? So episode 15 is coming up next weekend. So yes, have you been watching the show? You're liking how Robin and Marcus are getting along. They seem to be getting along quite well. They've tried to get the family together, but remember his sons were disappointed and upset that he wasn't, reconciling with their mom. Typical. But, they're both having problems with their kids. Even Dee, she's getting into trouble, trying to stressed out, trying to fit in. And then she just discovered that she didn't get into the college that was on the least of her choices, most likely due to her social media presence. When they researched her, they found out about her arrest. Remember when she and Aunt Vi was protesting? Yeah, so that's just something to think about. You got to deal with the consequences from whatever behaviors and circumstances you get into. So, that's just par for the course, boo-boo. But you know what? This episode was good. Let me tell you what happened. So at the beginning, right, Aunt Vi, she started to sub-teach for a rival that she was in culinary school with. Not culinary school, child. She is a good cook. I'm thinking about her cooking. No, when teaching art and everything. So she's going to sub for someone, and she's looking up things to do to make sure she puts on a great impression, right? And Dee is helping her out and everything. So next we see Mel and Robin. They are pretty much, just to give you a quick overview, they usually start with the premise for the show, but they add a little bit before that when they were talking about Aunt Vi sub-teaching for her rival back in the day, right? Okay, so here it is, the premise for the show. Mel and Robin, they're walking through what looks like the back of the backwoods, and they're looking for somebody specifically. So they found the van, and then they found this shallow grave, and pretty much are looking for some type of person who is burying people and alive, right? The stuff that they come up with, I swear. So they're rescuing this, what they call the grave digger killer, and then he's really off. It's usually somebody who's mentally challenged, or someone who looks like they could really be living in a cage somewhere on purpose. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is going on? Anywho, so they're trying to figure out exactly what's going on, because no one really, it's like these weird serial killers that you only, that comes like once every 10, 15 years or something like that. Anyway, like I was saying, so they're rescuing this shallow grave of someone who was just buried. And then he's watching them rescue who he just put in the ground. So here he comes trying to knock her block off with a shovel. and she takes him down and everything. And now we're talking about 1 year later, it happens again. And Detective Dante is on the case, and they're researching why is this shallow grave here, because all of that was a year ago, if I didn't mention it. When Belle and Robin was rescuing that person, that was a year prior. So now we're talking about now. Detective Dante discovers a similar thing. Someone on the force investigating the crime scene said, hey, this reminds me of what happened a year ago. And lo and behold, all of the signs are there, all of different things that happened. You know, whenever there's a serial killer, the Popo always leave out certain text clues that wouldn't generate a copycat killer. You know, people who take on the role and responsibility of who they're trying to actually catch. I mean, people are out here crazy. I mean, sociopaths, everything. Anyway, so Detective Dante realizes by examining the current deceased body that, yeah, looks like it's happening again. Child, why did I say that? So now he's letting Robin know what's going on, right? And they're like, well, we may have to visit homeboy in prison who we put away, because this right here don't make no sense. If he's in prison, what's really going on, right? So all of a sudden my hat thinking, well, somehow or another, somebody is communicating with him, because ain't no way somebody can just pick up a year later on the anniversary date. I mean, it's folks out there that'll do that, but most likely there's some type of that's my thing. Again, I've been watching these crime shows since I was little, child. It just seems so, like I said, sometimes it'd be corny, because you're like, oh yeah, so this was gonna happen, right? And this was gonna happen. This, you just figure it out kind of early. But anyway, Detective Dante and Robin going up to the prison to see about him, right? And they talking to him, and then they find out that there is an actual copycat killer, and now they gotta see about getting him. So next we see Dee and her boyfriend meets up with what's his name, Tyrese, by accident, right? They're just walking along the streets, talking and carrying on, and they see homie, and then he gets a text talking about, oh, it's a party. So, but he said, nah, it's in a sketchy neighborhood, and I don't want your girl feeling uncomfortable. So she automatically like, no, I'll be okay. I'll be fine. Let's go to the party. Come on, let's go. Let's go. And they're like, are you sure she, because, she a little prissy. We used to the hood. She want to come to the hood to party. Child, here we go with Delilah again. Get herself into some mess. So then we see Robin. She trying Jedi mind tricks on the grave digger killer out there in the prison. Here comes a psychiatrist. Now, why does psychiatrist look like he need a psychiatrist? I mean, I was like, what is going on? So he spends a lot of time with the grave digger, and come to find out he's writing a book. So he's kind of ignoring the other inmates and trying to get out as much info he can from the current dude, the graveyard killer up there, down to the prison. So they're trying to figure out who would do something like that. And usually it's somebody kind of close. You know how it is. Somebody close to them, somebody who could, like I said, be communicating with them. And a psychiatrist would be a perfect specimen to to fit that bill. So they're investigating everybody. They reading everybody for filth, making, just trying to make sure that they could, tie down exactly what's going on. So they, what they say, well, who else could be in contact with the graveyard killer? So the psychiatrist is letting them know, the lay of the land, his everyday. And I said, well, if his stuff is getting cleaned up by the janitor, perhaps the janitor would know something, right? So they go outside to try and get the janitor. He just got off work. Right before he gets off work, uh, Robin and Detective Dante go outside looking for him, and so he's checking with the fellas about, he about to leave and go home and everything. And then he turns around and he see them looking at him. While he looking at them, they looking at him. So he just starts to run, and all of a sudden, every time you run, that's an indication that you don't want to be caught talking to nobody. So it's just so obvious, right? So they, investigating everything. So then we see again Robin talking to the talking to the graveyard killer in prison. So she asks him questions, and he answers as if he's not really the one making all of the decisions. And usually, when you have someone in charge like this, sociopathic tendencies and everything, they don't speak of themselves as the underling. So she said, wait a minute, you said X, Y, and Z. You must be receiving orders from somebody else. So because you got caught last year, which is not quite typical of a serial killer, you must be the copycat killer. And then his whole face is like, oh damn, I got caught. So now we find out the real graveyard killer has always been out, and the one that they captured took on the persona of the copycat killer, and he's the one who is actually the copycat killer. So now they know for a fact that the real graveyard killer has always been out, and now they really got to find what the heck is going on. So the janitor give up a little info, right? After they tackle him down when he tried to run, he pretty much let him know that he meets up with him, gives the info, and it's nothing really more than that. And so now they gotta, of course, check the leads and everything. And Harry gonna do his thing and basically investigate where he been, where he go, who he talked to, and all that stuff. So it's on and popping now. Next, we see Dee and the boyfriend and Tyrese arrive at the party. She's suspect, but she's more curious than ever because she's never been to the hood at a house party. Like, girl, back in the day, ooh, in my day, ooh, we used to have so much fun at the house party. Just like the movie House Party. That's pretty much how it was. Little less dancing, but we still got our groove on, right? Oh, the good old times. Now, but Shirley lived after that. The house parties were deemed biohazard. Because it was always, getting interrupted by some folks who weren't supposed to be there. Anyway, so Diaz, goes in and just looking around and everything, and unsuspectedly discovers some things that she shouldn't discover, child. I'm like, what the hell? So, she a little sauced up and everything, and she's enjoying herself, as she most likely would. So next we see Harry. He goes through all of his, identification methods and everything, and pinpointing this and discovering that. And then he discovers who the gravedigger killer is. And then after describing it, they pull up his picture. Detective Dante discovers that dude was at the scene of the crime. And if you don't know, every sociopathic killer, murderer type person is always present at the scene of the crime, or usually it's a dude, so I just say he usually makes his way to the scene of the crime just to be a part of it, just to feel like, yeah, I'm watching my work and watching how they're trying to, figure things out as to what I did. It's that, again, that's that sociopathic tendency. So next we see Mel, Robin, and Detective Dante find the graveyard digger at work. And then he tells them he's already put in somebody in the ground, and they only have so much time to find them. Then they do all the suspenseful, music and everything, because we see how he captures her. She was a waitress. He was getting something to eat, and they always flash back to his the things on the wrist that guys wear to tie their shirts at the end. Anyway, they're really nice. What are those things called? At the end of the at the wrist level of the shirt, that's how they tie. They're not usually buttons. I don't know why I'm thinking handcuffs. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So next thing you know, they flash to the gravedigger's wrist, where his shirt's tied up with those special metal clips, and it's him pretty much, because they keep flashing back to him sitting at the bar without them showing his face, and then they She's serving him, having good conversation. You know how it goes. So now we're seeing how he gets her. He slashed her tire because she comes out and finds that her tire is slashed and she needs some help. He said, come up to my van. I have some whatever, that we can jack up your tire and yada yada." I'm like, "Girl, why ain't that in your trunk? Ain't everybody with a car supposed to have all that, emergency equipment?" Child, listen. The way this show be going on and carrying on, be like, y'all just leading us to, it just kind of be, sometimes it can just be so obvious. So, like I said, he's luring her over to his van. Next thing you know, we see her in a pine box buried somewhere, and she's screaming for help. Child, I swear. Next we see Detective Dante and Mel go to his house to find clues, and they're talking to his mom, and they discover that his mom, he tried to off his mom when he was little, so they sent him off, to get some help, rich kid and everything. So when they get back to the mom's house, to get back to his house, he lives with his mom. And like, he lived with her. I wonder what's going on. So they kind of figure that he's doing things to women in relation to his mom. Sociopathic, they just take on the role and ooh, child, I swear these sociopaths are just some. So typically they take on the role of whatever they judged up in their mind as payback and get back to whomever did them wrong. And right now, the synopsis is because he was doing something to his mom, they're trying to figure out exactly what transpired when he was a kid. So these women sort of look alike, similar to how the mom looks that they discovered. And so they're trying to pick her brain at the same time, check out his house and everything. So she's giving them the blues. She's giving all of them a hard time about why they're there. She said he would never hurt a fly. They said, "Well, he hurt you, didn't he?" She's like, "Listen, that he was a child. He wouldn't do anything like that now." Yada yada. And she's just being hard. And so she allows them to search his room. And then again, they're looking for clues. And so they turn off the lights, and then there's some constellation on the ceiling. And so Harry's still investigating while they're there. Harry's listening, and just going through his childhood through the channels of investigation, using all sorts of tapping in and hacking into this, that, and the other. So they go and discovers some info, some intel as to why he was shipped off. So there was a maid, housekeeper type person, caretaker for him, kind of babysitter situation, and the mom fired her. So apparently, the maid person would take the grave digger killer, whatever his name is, to the park and watch the stars at night. So apparently something transpired as to why that was an issue. And so the mom fired the maid, and that took away his peace. That took away his love for that experience. And so because of that, he attacked the mom. And that's the reason why he's doing what he's doing now, as a payback, get back situation that they discovered. I swear listen, they have so much technology, so much history and statistics that they can just figure something out just by looking in a room as they're doing. So they're putting two and two together. At the same time, Robin is still at the prison trying to pick his brain and everything, and he's getting upset. And so he wants her to tell him something about herself, because he kind of researched her too as to why she does what she does. And she was like, "What you mean?" He said, "Aren't you the vigilante?" Yada yada. So he figured it out. And so she tells him a story that sounded good, but he didn't believe her. And so he kind of shut down. So after so long of trying to convince him, to listen to her, so she finally, at the same time, Harry's listening. So he's listening to what's going on with Mel and Dante. He's listening to what's going on with her, Robin, I mean, and the actual copycat killer that Robin is in prison with trying to pick his brain. So then she takes off the or disconnects her listening device so Harry couldn't listen, and she tells him a real story about her being out there on the field and coming up against something that she didn't want to have to deal with, and because a family saved her life, she felt the need to pay it forward for the rest of her life. So that's why she's a vigilante. And he believed her. He got the sense and the feeling that she was telling the truth and everything. So, oh Lord, I swear, when they get into these personal situations and things, you can't help but think, wow, I wonder, was that a lie? Anyway, so back to the story with the real graveyard killer, digger killer person. So, anyway, the mom, like I said, the mom fired the maid. The maid took him, to see the stars, and he couldn't have that anymore. So that's why he attacked the mom. And so Mel and Dante find the latest victim just in time due to all the text clues and everything. Harry mentions the different constellations that were described to him on the ceiling. So because he was still living there with his mom. So no, they were trying to figure out when is the next victim and where it is, because like I said, when they finally caught up to him at work after finding out who he was, he said, well, you only have so much time because I already took care of the next victim, right? So we're looking at all the different constellations and everything. Harry figures it out. So they give him he gives Mel and Detective Dante all of the coordinates to find the next victim, and then they finally find her. Child, that's where they be getting it at the right moment. So right before they see that she's unconscious, but she's still breathing. So they finally get her and everything and rescue her. And they let him know that they rescued her. And he just felt so defeated and everything. He just put his head down like, dang, they got me. Just like how the Scooby Doo. I swear this has such a Scooby Doo vibe. It's kind of crazy. So, like I said, they rescued the victim in the nick of time. She was looking blue and pale. It's cold outside. Anyway, next we see Dee. She was brought home by her boyfriend. Vi was like, I see you a little different from how you left. So then, she thanks him for bringing her home safe and sound, and tells him to skedaddle. So then Dee sits down and starts to go on and on. You know how drunks be after they get, after they feel themselves, they start to feel woe is me as to why they drinking and carrying on. And so Vi just gave her some water. I was like, here, drink this. You're going to feel bad in the morning, but, pour your heart out, boo boo. Go ahead. So she's just upset that she couldn't get into her college. She's stressed. She thinking about her future, and she just got caught up. And so Vi, gave her a talk and said, well, after this, what's next. She was like, what? Telling your mom. And Dee was like, oh, so you're going to tell her? Vi was like, no, you going to tell her. If you're going to drink, you're going to tell. You know what I'm saying? So next we see the graveyard digger gives Robin something to think about. She returns to the scene when they find the woman, and she wants to be there when they take the real graveyard digger killer away in handcuffs. And he's letting her know, listen, pretty much he lets her know it's hard to force memories back in the grave. It's always something to think about. And, she's just thinking about some things that she was discussing with the copycat killer, just over her life period, because we never really know what truly happens when we're talking about sometimes a period piece. Like I said, they went back a year later to bring up what's happening today. So just to give it some context, something's going to happen, I think. Something's going to happen towards the end of this season, perhaps, like I said, hopefully, she and Denzel will make an appearance in some type of way. That would just be so awesome. I'm not wishing things into oblivion, but I'm just saying that would just be the perfect scenario for an ending. Anyway, Well, if you didn't know, The Equalizer 4 with Denzel is coming out soon. I saw the trailer. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so it looks like he's still out there. Was that in Italy somewhere? Somewhere in Europe, when The Equalizer 3 was where The Equalizer 3 was filmed. So it just looks like there's a continuation of some sort. Anywho, well, that was it for The Equalizer on CBS, season 5, episode 14. Don't forget to come back and we're going to keep going because episode 15 is coming up in a few days. So thank you again. Thanks again. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I'll catch you in the comments later. Bye. All day.